It's given me a message.
So here we are. I think that we're good to go, Rita. So I think we're here. So hello, everybody. And finally, welcome to my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. This has been a 45-minute ordeal of getting this going. Don't you just love technology? But anyway, as we know, everything's in divine order, and here we are. And it's going to be a very fun and interesting conversation we'll have in just a minute with Reverend Rita Scheibeck, Rita with an I, R-I-T-A. I apologize for the E, Rita. I have a friend, Rita, who uses an E, and I just naturally am used to doing that. So Rita with an I, how are you tonight?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for joining us. And I really look forward to sharing your life. I really am amazed at all the things that you've done. And I knew you were already an amazing person, but then when I got to read a little more about you, I'm like, wow, she has been through and done a lot of stuff. So we're going to
Uh,
cover that in just a minute. And everybody out there, if you're tuned in, make sure that you uh, respond, ask questions, give feedback, whatever you want to do. And this will be available on YouTube and Facebook as well. So, okay, so take a deep breath and let's get this party started. Okay, so
a
anyway.
deep breath and a good laugh.
Yeah, deep breath. Well, the technology is a blessing, and sometimes you just want to throw the computer across the room. And I've learned that sometimes I've actually started a video, and then all of a sudden I'll flip and I'll be sideways, and for no reason. So you just got to go with it and learn. It does teach you to laugh a little bit. So anyway, well, Rita, I remembered when I met you first in person was I think it was in 2021 at the ministers conference in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. That was the Florida conference, the Alliance of Divine Love, and which were both ministers. And I really felt a connection with you. I love meeting you, and I thought you were just had the best energy
Thank
and
you.
yeah. So I always enjoyed that connection, and we've remained connected, not physically, but through virtual means the past few years. And thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we're going to cover here. And first of all, I discovered, I did not know this, that you were born and lived for 18 years in Columbus, Ohio. And as I said to you earlier, uh, I grew up on the Ohio River myself, just down the river a couple hours from Columbus in Huntington, West Virginia. So many times in my childhood, a big trip was to Columbus, the big city, and it's a neat city. And so you live there. And how many brothers and sisters do you have? And what did you do in Columbus?
Two brothers, one sister.
Mhm.
Basically, I was just growing up and getting through school.
Okay.
And after my time as an exchange student between my junior and senior year, I decided that when I graduated, I was going back to South America. And mom said when I was 18, I could do whatever I wanted. So
Oh,
I went back to South America to Colombia for 7 years.
oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, so you were an exchange student. That's awesome. So you
It
loved
was
it.
great.
Yeah. And well, I always enjoyed meeting the exchange students that came into our town. It was always a treat, to have them be integrated into that. And I bet that was an experience, quite an experience. Did you know anyone there before you went?
Nope, not a soul. And
Yeah.
when I got there, I found out that nobody in my Colombian family spoke English. So I was completely immersed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
when I came back from there after 2.5 months, some of the students in my school that had moved there from Cuba, they thought I was Colombian
Oh,
because of
wow.
the way I spoke.
Oh, wow. So you
Yeah,
picked it up that quickly,
I
huh?
picked it up really quickly.
Oh, and do you speak any other languages?
I used to speak French, but now I can understand a little, I can read some, but it's really hard for me to get through a little conversation.
Yeah. Wow. So do you ever practice your Spanish now, or is
All
that?
the time.
Oh, very well. I guess in Florida you have a lot of opportunity as well down there for sure. There, it's pretty integrated community down there, and a lot of
Sometimes,
Hispanic.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and here in North Carolina, we have a lot of Hispanic and South American residents here, and a lot. I mean, it's surprising, and it's a good thing. I love them all, and it's great. So I'm looking. You okay? So you told your mom I'm going back. Did you go back after right after high school, or what?
Right
When?
after.
And
The
then what
minute
did
I
you?
turned 18, I was gone.
So what'd you do down there? Just took
I
off?
taught English as a second language.
Oh, okay.
And in my bio, I said that except for a small amount of time as a professional singer in a seedy nightclub, I most of my life have worked in some sort of social services.
Wow. Well, that
Mhm.
is, well, and I can see you in that because you are that. You are just a beacon of comfort and light and support, and I definitely see you in that element still today. And um, so I am intrigued though. I asked you actually, I said when we were talking earlier, I said you've lived all over. You lived, let's see, in Alaska and South America, Spain. And I said, was your father in the military? And you said, no, I was. And so when did you join the Navy?
In 1976, I think it was 75 or 76.
Yeah.
And I was on hold for a little while until they got a place for me, and then I did boot camp, and then I went straight to Alaska.
So what prompted that? That's admirable too. I just, especially, you know, that many years ago, what, almost 50 years ago, right?
Yeah,
And taking that was big for a woman to do that.
yeah, it was, and I wanted my GI Bill. I wanted to go to school at that point, so I wanted my GI Bill so I could get my education.
Oh, very cool. Well, and
Mhm.
did you get your education? Is that where did you get
I got a bunch of education, not all of it from books.
it? I'm sure you did. Well, and you know, Rita, I'm thinking to myself and I'm laughing. I could see you even now being a lounge singer. I bet you were good at it. Yeah. So,
It was so much fun.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was a lark. It was a lark.
yeah. Well, that's fun though. So, what kind of music did you sing?
I sang mostly pop music, Frank Sinatra, The Girl from Ipanema,
Oh,
some salsa, classic salsa music. So
oh,
yeah,
that
I sang a little bit of everything.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you
Mhm.
know, I gotta say, you may or may not know this. Years ago in Florida, I had the Palm Beach Center for Living, a spiritual center, and Marianne Williamson was involved and came in on a pretty regular basis to offer a benefit to raise money for us. And anyway, I found out early in our friendship that she was a lounge singer. That was one of her
Uh,
professions. So you and Marianne, if you ever meet, you all can rip out some Ipanema, right?
yeah, I
There
don't
you
think I
go.
can do it now.
Yeah, I bet you could. Yeah. So anyway, well, so you've gone, so now when did you land in Gainesville?
Oh my gosh. It's been 20, it's been since 1999, I think. It's been a good 20 couple years.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what brought you there? How'd you land there?
Well, my mom was in Florida when she died, and had been still living in South Carolina. And I decided I wanted to be more near family. So my sister lived down here, and I came down here to be near her.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. Well,
Mhm.
I did notice in your bio that you said you really got a knack for caregiving for your siblings. So I'm assuming you're the oldest. Is that correct?
I am.
Yeah. And so you
That,
took care of them, and that led you to be in social services and caregiving. And it seems as though you moved in from that to, how did you get into working with alcoholics and addicts?
When I was in the Navy, they decided I would make a good counselor, so they sent me to counseling school out in San Diego, and it's the highest rate of people dropping out or getting put out in the whole Navy of all the schools, including SEAL training.
Mm.
So only 8 of us in that class finished.
Oh, wow.
Because it's really, you have to really bear yourself emotionally just to get through it. You know, in addition to the physical training and the book learning and that kind of thing. So I went there, and then I came back to my original duty station, which at that time was Jacksonville, Florida. And I did inpatient counseling there for 3 years. And
Yeah.
then I got out of the Navy.
Wow. So you worked with a lot of the officers, and I'm sure there's a lot of addiction issues in the military, as everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But something else we have in common that I just learned about you just today is that you worked in the HIV and AIDS community. And
Mhm.
when I was in Florida for many years, that was a big part of my ministry, and I was very involved with the gay men, the children and babies with AIDS, the families. It was really in the midst of the crisis, but back in the early 90s. And how did you get into it, and what did you do?
I just managed to get a job. I was working my prosperity principles, and
Mm-hmm.
I was got a job from insurance as an insurance agent to a job at the health department here in Gainesville, and they they wanted me because of my counseling background, my Spanish background, and my insurance background.
Mm.
So because of my financial, I think my financial and prosperity um, thinking, learned mostly at Unity and, you know, Catherine Ponder and,
Mm-hmm.
all the great prosperity teachers. I got into that job and negotiated a higher salary than what they were offering. So
Very cool.
that worked out very well for me.
And so who did you work with? Who was who were most of your clients? Were they men, women,
Everybody,
everybody? Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
And what
Um,
years was that?
it was 13 years, and I retired from there, and that was in, oh gosh, Charlotte, I don't know. I think I went to work there in September of 2006 or 2007.
Wow.
So I worked with them for about 13 years.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That's an education to say the least. And
Absolutely. I worked with some wonderful people. Some of
mhm.
the doctors and the counselors that I worked with were just excellent, excellent professionals.
Yep, I agree. I met some of the most wonderful people in that work as well, volunteers and doctors and you name it. Yeah, it was
Mhm,
heartbreaking and but also very rewarding work. And
mhm.
yeah, so I had yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of or met Ma Jaya. Did you ever meet her, Ma Jaya? There's a spiritual community she founded in Sebastian, Florida called Kashi Ashram. And she passed probably 10 years ago, but she was a trip, and she is the one who really got me pulled into this and trained me and worked with me. And it was so a lot. She has actually, the community still exists. You would probably love to go down there for a visit. They'd always welcome you, I'm sure. I'd call for you if you'd like. And anyway, it's a beautiful place, and they have a beautiful pond there where many of the I won't say clients of hers, devotees who died of AIDS, or their ashes are in there. It's really a powerful visit and place to go. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely a part of my life that I hadn't thought of till just I hadn't thought of it in a long time till just reading about this. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, so you had mentioned a minute ago about your prosperity consciousness and your unity experience. And,
Uh-huh.
I'm curious, I want to get more into prosperity in a minute, but you said you were basically dragged into unity, resisting. So two questions. Before unity, did you have any spiritual background interest? And then what made you finally cave?
Um, well, I had my own sort of spirituality that I practiced with quote unquote a higher power.
Hmm.
And when I was in South America, I used to go into empty Catholic churches. They would leave them open. And I used to go in there and pray and say prayers of gratitude and that kind of thing. But I was in and out of a spirituality consciousness for quite some time. But the woman that dragged me kicking and screaming to unity, she had asked me, she had said, one day you're going to have to come with me to the Unity Church. And I said, yeah, sure. You know how you do that.
Yeah.
You don't mean it,
Yeah.
but you say it. And she badgered me for weeks. And I finally said, I've got to get this woman off my back.
Right.
Went with her to the Unity Church. And that day they were having a workshop by John Randolph Price. I
Oh,
don't know if you know of his work.
oh, I do. He's
Yes,
prosperity teacher.
yes. And he wrote The Super Beings.
Right.
And he was doing a workshop on the Super Beings book. And at the end of the workshop, they were open for questions and things like that. And I raised my hand and I got up and I said, I've never heard these things in my life. But as I'm standing here, I know in all my heart that they are true. And I was hooked. I was just hooked.
Wow.
Charles Fillmore is my hero.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever been out to Unity Village?
Yes,
Isn't
I
it
was at a
wonderful?
retreat out there. I loved it. I was some sort of conference or something for about a week, and
Yeah.
I just loved it. What a beautiful place.
Yeah. Wow. It is a terrific place. I was out there once, and actually that was a memory I have with my parents. When I got introduced to the Unity Church, uh, I went in just like you. I mean, all the way. It was like such an immersion for me in a good way. And I grew up Methodist, and my parents were not too sure. They didn't know what unity was, and they weren't too sure they were happy about this. And then I said, well, I'm thinking of being a unity minister. And my father said, look, if your mom, and I told him I was going out to Unity Village for a week-long retreat. We have so many things in common. It's crazy. So anyway, I said, I'm going to go out and check the place out for a week. And he called me back. He said, well, I'll pay your way if you let your mother and I tag along. And they came out and spent the week. And what a blessing that was to have that experience. And uh, they uh, they actually loved it. I mean, my father was up first thing in the morning and last one to bed at night. He was totally into it. My mother loved it. They had a renewal of their vows from James Dillett Freeman. He
Oh,
was
wow.
there. Can you imagine? That was crazy. Yeah. So it was a really neat thing. But I love Unity and the teachings. What year did you start with Unity?
1980 or 81.
Okay, so quite a
Yeah,
while ago. Yeah, that's
yeah,
before I landed there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. My parents at first and the rest of my family thought it was some sort of cult.
Oh, yeah,
So I had to disabuse them of that sentiment.
yeah.
But I taught in a couple of lessons at the Unity here in Gainesville,
Hmm.
and one of them was a Christmas service, and my dad and my sister went, and they realized, it wasn't a cult at all. It was
Right.
definitely Christian based and,
That's exactly
whatever.
what happened with my parents. Once they experienced it, they were like, "Oh, this is great."
Mhm.
They loved it, and
Mom and dad were big devotees of Edwene Gaines. I don't know
oh,
if you know her,
oh,
but
sure, oh
yeah,
yeah, Mentone, Alabama. Yeah,
yeah,
she actually came to our center in Florida and offered a prosperity workshop. Yeah,
I've
so
seen her and her husband at that time, Bert,
mhm.
several times. I just adore her.
Yeah, yeah, she's something, isn't she?
Yeah,
Yeah, Fireball. Well,
yep,
and Ellen, my partner, she went to Stonehenge with Edwene but so that was 30 years ago. And
uh-huh.
a
Wow.
group of goddesses, they call it. So
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
Edwene, I think she's still alive and well. I haven't really heard much, but I think so, right?
I don't know. I'd have to check that out. I
Yeah.
give her name out all the time to people looking for prosperity, information.
Mhm.
Her and Catherine Ponder and John Randolph Price,
Yeah.
they're three of the big ones, and of course, um, Esther Hicks.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Buster Hicks. Yep. Well,
Speaking
and
of prosperity, let me just put in a plug.
okay.
Um, Pretty soon, I'm gonna be writing for the blogs, the ADL blogs, a series of 5 little lessons on prosperity. So
Wow.
stand by for that.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, I do want to get to that. And I guess now's as good a time as any. Well, I don't want to get there quite yet. So, because I'm trying to go into a timeline as much as possible. So you do the Unity thing. Now, where did you get introduced to ADL?
Here in Gainesville, Reverend Bob Essling,
Mhm.
loved that man. Oh my gosh, he got me into the class, and he was my mentor. And the world is a sadder place without him, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
he's with us from the other side, though. I know that.
absolutely.
He certainly planted plenty of good seeds, and you're certainly one of them. And of course, Bonnie, who I know you're dear friends with. Did you all happen to be in the same class or?
No,
Yeah.
no,
So,
we were a couple years apart, I think.
yeah. But so you became an ADL minister in what, 2001, I believe you said?
Yes.
Yeah. And then that opened up a whole new experience for you spiritually. And so what have you done in your ministry since then? What does your ministry look like?
Um, a lot of it is spiritual readings for people, psychic readings, and classes and meditations, um, mostly the psychometry readings, and I
Oh,
now do tea leaf readings too. That's been interesting.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah, I've
Mhm.
never, I've had psychometry readings, but I don't think I've ever had a tea leaf reading. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
different.
yeah, that's cool. And of course, now, one thing that I appreciate so much is you're a beautiful and insightful author, writer, and you have many articles in our public or our website, I guess ADL website, and our virtual newsletter.
Mhm.
And have you always been that prolific as a writer?
I don't know about prolific, but I started about age 14, 15. I
Yeah.
started writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you started writing then, were you writing spiritual things or what were you writing about
No,
then? Yeah.
heavens, no. I was
Yeah.
writing a miniature novel about a bullfighter.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, living in South America, I guess that, yeah, that makes, I guess, some sense. Did you ever go to any bullfights?
I did in Spain. I went to one,
In
yes.
Spain, yeah. In Spain, you would. Yeah, not South America, but Spain. Yeah.
Right.
How was Spain? I bet that was awesome.
Spain is just beautiful. It's
Where did you live?
beautiful. I lived on a small town across the bay from a city called Cadiz. it was a military town, a military base. And that's where I started my social service in the civilian sector.
Mm-hmm.
And so that worked out really well for me because I was able to get transferred then to San Diego. But Spain and all of the, oh my gosh, the first job I had there was as a recreation aide. And I used to do tours, take people on tours to different parts of Spain. And it's just lovely. The people are lovely. The climate is beautiful. Um, the cost of living is decent.
Mm-hmm.
It's really lovely.
Wow. I've never been to Spain. I've really not done a lot of internationals, a little bit, but not like you, you've definitely been the traveler for sure. And
Yeah.
and now you're settled in and doing your writing now and these wonderful articles. And I want to go back to something you had that we've been talking about already, and that's prosperity. And that seems to be an issue people have is not being in a real high prosperity consciousness. And a lot of people and a lot of ministers, as you probably know, in our ministry seem to have difficulty getting into that mindset, into that vibration. How
Hmm.
would you what would you tell somebody? I know you would say the big three, Edwin and John Randolph and Ponder. Obviously, those are terrific books and people to study. But as far as if you were teaching and you're writing these articles, how would you lead someone to tap into that consciousness?
Um, I'm writing this same series, and I'm going to put in the ADL um, blogs. I'm publishing now that series in the Sacred Earth Center newsletter, a center that I belong to here in
Mm-hmm.
Gainesville. And at the end of the prosperity writings, I'm going to teach a two-part treasure mapping class. I learned about that in Unity, and I think it's a place to get people to emotionally look at their prosperity thoughts and feelings and get them past that
Mm-hmm.
into a different way of looking at prosperity. And treasure mapping, a lot of people call it mission boards.
Yeah, right.
A mission board is usually more business-like in nature, more brain oriented rather than feeling oriented. And a treasure map is more emotional, more spiritual in nature,
Wow.
usually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very cool. And
Yeah.
so we're going to be blessed with you writing these 5 articles and sharing those with us as well.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of prosperity too is giving. I think you got to you got to giving and receiving are one. And
Hmm.
I think so many people, it doesn't mean you give it all away, but I do believe like one prosperity class we held, which was hugely effective at the Namaste Center up here years ago, was God. It's called Prosperity Plus, and it was I'm embarrassed. I just blinked out on her name. Mary Morrissey. And it was a really good program. And it was, you just committed to 30 days, basically. And she said,
Hmm.
look at it as an experiment. And it was a lesson in tithing, which Edwin Gaines talks a lot about. And I like the way, Mary Morrissey put it. She said, look, at the end of 30 days, if it ain't working for you, you can walk away from it. But
Hmm.
most of the people, I have to say, saw huge shifts in their prosperity. And I think that, whatever I would suggest to people, and I think the Unity, they had the 4 T's, the
Yep.
prosperity program,
Hmm.
time, talent, treasure, and
Tithe.
tithe, of course, yeah. And so I do believe that there is, we're opening up ourselves to receive more that we give,
Hmm.
and just give what you can. Your
Yeah.
energy.
I have a whole section on giving in the series.
Very cool. Well, I'll definitely look forward to that. And what else do you like to write about? What are some of the topics? I mean, I've read your articles, but what topics excite you spiritually the most?
Well, I've written a very long, pretty comprehensive meditation that includes breath work, and it's a guided meditation, and it's called the Goddess in the Garden. And
Mm-hmm.
I've presented that at a couple of different places, and I'm going to be presenting an extended version of that at a place called 13 Moons here in Gainesville. And they have quite a following, all women. I haven't seen any men there yet, but
Not
they certainly would
unusual.
be welcome. I take that back. There have been a couple men there. I just forgot about them. But anyway, I'm going to be doing that next Monday, actually. And so I like to write meditations and um, the articles that you see. I'm getting ready to put my articles into a book, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've got to get over a few technological humps.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got to experience that just an hour
I
ago, didn't we?
know.
Well, even when you think you got it, which just totally going a little bit with that. One thing that we're that is, if people are watching and this is on Restream. I'm just sort of giving the audience an education here. And Restream, I'm doing this through Zoom. And with that, it goes live to YouTube, Facebook, my website, and also Facebook, Zoom, and my website, and YouTube. And anyway, so if you're watching, I have two Facebook channels or pages, I guess you would call it. And if people are watching, and I'll tell you that right now, if you are on Charlotte McGinnis and not Rev Charlotte McGinnis, until we get this glitch ironed out, you're only seeing me. And if you're only seeing me, that's because you're on Charlotte McGinnis and not Rev Charlotte. So hopefully by next week, it's been happening for a couple of weeks. I'm not sure why. Good news is I will make sure that the correct one is posted everywhere in the next hour. So just make sure that if you pass it along to your friends, you do the one I post in an hour with both of us on it. And I do, yeah, Rita, I see Vicky, our good friend Vicky, and Spray is here, and she says we're rocking it. Yeah, so
Hi, Vicki.
so, Vicky's another awesome angel in our ministry. And Barb Rothwell, I saw she was on here, and I don't know who else, but yeah, we're so blessed to have so many great people in our ministry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, so prosperity. And so you've written articles on all sorts of cool things, and I know you'll continue. I didn't realize that you were so busy teaching all these things and doing all this work. That is terrific. And I
Hmm.
see Jerry there, Jerry Mannion. I don't know if you know her. She was on a few weeks ago, and another awesome person. Speaking of living in a foreign country, she just moved to Mexico. She's
Yes, I
also
did
an
see
ADL.
that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. She's an ADL minister as well, and she took that move and loves it, and it's just a perfect fit for her. So I'm sure
Good.
you would have lots to talk about. So anyway, um, as we're moving on here, I wanted to just a couple of things. You said that you're focusing now your personal attention on physical healing through energy work, assisted by hypnosis sessions with Diane.
Hmm.
So you can share as little as much as you want. Now, Diane is one of our dearest friends. She's an ADL minister and our office manager, guru, goddess extraordinaire, and a
Absolutely.
beautiful healer. I mean, she is. I don't think people have a clue of how gifted Diane is spiritually, because they're just used to her being there helping with the technical stuff and the business aspect of ADL. But she is a gifted woman, and so you're focusing on your healing, and what does that look like? You can share as little or as much as you want.
Well, I've had quite a few physical challenges. They kind of keep mounting as I go along. Some of them, the doctors have not been able to even diagnose. So that's been really interesting and very frustrating for them and for me. But I really believe that we can heal when we know what's going on with that part of our body. I haven't completed any healings yet, but I'm working on it, and I do believe that it's possible, and I do believe I'm going to get there. Diane has been instrumental in that with her hypnosis sessions. We even did a past life regression
Mm,
session, which was extremely interesting. Um, so she's been helping me along with some of that, learning to pay attention to the part of the body that I want to heal and release what's not serving me there.
right.
So that's been good. And I'm enrolled in a program called Mind Valley.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that. They're
There's a
helping
lot
me.
of healers, right? In that they offer a lot of different healers and opportunities for learning and stuff.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep. I'm working on Jeffrey Allen's program about duality. He calls it duality. And so I think that I've been focusing on the healing aspect of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know I hold you in that vision of perfection. You are that already. And I know that our prayer ministry, which you're actively engaged in, and I certainly appreciate your support there. Uh, you are, instead of focusing on uh, it used to when we first started, and you probably remember this, we would put the request with the person's name and then the diagnosis and the issue. And then as we evolved, I think that people began to, uh, from what we learned about a higher level of prayer, higher rung is, just thy will be done. And not to, because if I put, Betty has heart disease, for example, it would
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, that what would the focus go? Naturally, our minds and our ego and our compassion goes, oh no, Betty's got heart disease. So we'd be doing what? Sending that vibe of not healing necessarily, well intended, but oh my God, the heart disease. So that is not really curing, or I won't say curing, but helping the situation. So now
Right.
every submission is just the greatest degree of love on all levels, trusting the process, seeing each other in our divinity and our wholeness rather
Mm-hmm.
than the limitation. So I hold that for you and everyone as well. And as a result, we get like tremendous feedback from people, like immediate. So it's beautiful. And I thank you so much for your support in that as well.
You're welcome. It's my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah. So as we wind down, there is something else you mentioned here, that another great friend, beautiful minister who I've known many, many years. She was a Floridian who also moved up to this neck of the woods. She's 30 miles down the road, is Reverend Shelley Entine. And
Mm-hmm.
you said you are currently studying her books, Truth Without Veils. It's a
That's from Vicky Sproles, Reverend
Oh,
Vicky Sproles.
oh, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. So you're reading Shelley's the Priestess. I'm sorry, I
Yes,
jumped ahead. And then you're Vicky, channeled by Meehan. You want to tell us about Vicky Sproles and Shelley's books, what you're getting out of those?
yes.
Give them
Shelley's
a
book.
plug. Give them a plug.
I know, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to get Vicky on here.
Yeah.
I've had
Um,
Shelley.
yeah, Shelley wrote some astounding books that I believe were more channeled than written, even though she did a lot of research, I understand, about them. Um, about a young priestess in the days of the Arthurian time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just wonderful. They have a lot of um, like recipes and incantations and things that were actually done by the priestesses at the time. And also kind of a novel, a storyline.
Mm.
It's very beautiful. It's very well done.
Yeah.
And I'm rereading 1 and 2 so I can read 3, because 1 and 2 were quite some time ago, and now I'm reading the book 3. Um,
Wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, and Vicky's book is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. Um, I when my prayer partner and I, some years ago now, many years ago now, were looking for something to study, we couldn't come up with the right book. And I finally uh, picked up Vicky's first book, which is no longer in print, unfortunately, but it was Let Fear Be No More. And I picked that book up kind of by accident. That's a long story. Um, but I picked it up. I read the creation story, which is in Truth Without Veils, and I was hooked. And I ran home. I told my prayer partner, I said, I found the book that we're going to do a book study on. And she had the same response as I did. Oh, yes. And we did a class and a discussion group about that for almost 4 years.
Oh,
And we
wow.
still didn't get through the book.
Yeah.
It's so full of powerful, insightful content. And
Mhm.
she channeled all of this.
Very
And
cool.
now, actually, at the memorial service, she's going to at the celebration of life for Reverend Dr. Barbara Selwa, she's
Hmm.
going to bring some with her so that as
Wonderful.
many ministers as we can get can have one. I really believe that discussion groups will be popping up all over.
That's awesome. Well,
Hmm.
I hope so. Well, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Say it and it's so, right? And it's great stuff and you're great stuff. And so as we're winding down here, anything that we might have not touched base on that you'd like to share with the group?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I was a wild child at 18. Um, yeah, but I've grown out of that, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Um, I love the work that I do. I love my involvement with the spiritual community. I am so proud of being an ADL minister. Um, I believe there is only love, and I do a meditation about that too, which is something I'd never heard anybody do before.
Hmm.
But it came to me in meditation, and I did it at the Unity Church, and it was pretty life changing for some people and for me.
I'm sure. I'm
Hmm.
sure. So you're just going to keep on keeping on and keep on shining that light and healing and all the good stuff.
All
And
the good stuff.
yeah, yeah. So, well, do you offer I know you do the psychometry and the tea leaves and probably I'm sure spiritual counseling and guidance. Do you
Mhm.
do any of that virtually or via phone or so you're
Yes,
available? So how
yes,
could
I do.
someone contact you if they're interested?
It's always on the blogs. There's my phone number and my email address, and I answer all my phone calls, because a lot of times it's a new client. Um, and on the phone, I can do the psychometry in a different way than doing it in person. In person, I hold the metal, but in virtually or on the phone, I let them hold the metal, and it's worked
Mhm.
out just wonderfully. Years ago, I didn't think I could even do it, but it has worked out very well. And I have clients all over the United States.
Wow.
Of course, you can't do tea leaves virtually, so
Yeah. Well, and just so you know, and this is not this my heart to heart, although I have many ministers who are my guests because I have a lot of friends in the ministry and lots of great people like yourself to share their story. But I have other people outside, so people might not have that information from the blog. So,
oh,
what's your email?
The email is Reverend Rita Scheibeck at gmail.com. I can spell that if you like.
Okay, go ahead and spell it, and I will put it on, I'll put it on the comments too.
Okay. It's RevritaScheibeck, and that's all one word, at gmail.com. And should I give you my phone number also?
Sure, sure.
352-284-8609.
Wonderful. And
Yeah.
like I said, I will put that in the comments so people can reach you if they're moved to do so. And Rita, thank you so much. I know we got off to a little rocky start with that technology stuff, but it all turned out to be perfect. And you're an awesome lady, and you were an awesome guest. And thank you for taking the time to share your light with us.
Thank you for having me on, Charlotte. I really appreciate it.
That was a good time, and we will be in touch for sure. And many blessings, and namaste to you and everyone watching. Take care.
Take care.
Uh-huh.